So this is just some real practical stuff you can use like in your training, and especially leading up to nationals and at nationals, some really important stuff that's always helpful, and it's real simple things as well. So the first one we're going to talk about is like what we've been doing here and what you'll be doing after this, after the lunch break. We're going to do a lot of random stuff, and the reason we do the random stuff is because since you guys have been playing so long, like if you just keep doing the same exercises, your brain actually just shuts off. Okay, you learn nothing, all right, basically. So why we add random is to keep your brain ticking over, okay? So especially when you're training by yourselves, like when you're at nationals and stuff like that, think about not just doing backhand, forehand, warm up. Do something a bit different, do something like that. Make it a bit more random, because that's what's going to help you the most, because that's what's most like competition, okay? You're not going to get there and they're going to get to the same spot every time, okay? So that's a really big one. And the important thing on top of training is when you guys are training by yourselves, you need to be thinking, how can I make this more difficult? So where we want you to be is to understand that if you're missing in training, it's not necessarily bad, okay? We need to get you at a level where you need to be thinking like you need to get to about 70%, 50 to 70% failure rate, okay? So if you're hitting that target but you know that you're doing the right things, that's what we want. And it's as basic as saying to the blocker, okay, I need you to hit a bit wider or something like that, because that's where the growth happens, and that's where you transfer. Like you know how sometimes you feel like you hit a plateau and you're not improving. That's where you get to the next step. Okay, that's a really big one. All right. Yeah, you want to push yourself, so you got to find that balance. You don't want it to be too hard. If you're missing everything, you're not learning anything. But at the same time, if you're getting everything on, you're not learning anything either. Okay. So another big one is, so you know how some of you have been given like a logbook? Some of you given a logbook? Yeah. So the theory behind that is it's really good to reflect on what happens after a match, mainly because we forget. Like you play a match you're not happy with, you're like, oh, backhand's crap, stuff like that, say something, my serve's no good, but then you walk away and training next week or a few days later and you forget about it and you just go back into just doing the same kind of stuff, okay? So the reason for keeping that logbook, but even better a journal, it's real simple. Just ask yourself 3 questions after every match. Just what did I do well, and what do I need to do better, and how can I improve that in training sessions. So you don't have to use it, but they say, like sports science wise, they say it's proven to help a lot, because it puts your thoughts down on paper and you can refer back to it. And it's good for positive thinking too, because if you can go back and see, okay, well I actually worked on that, you get a sense of progression, okay? Especially when you guys are by yourselves or at nationals. Good practice to start doing it at nationals. You know, you're playing people like Victorians and New South Welshmen who may have a higher level than you. You need to be able to know what to come back and train, or even be able to say to Dave or Steve or whoever, you know, this is what I found out, this is what I need to work on. Because, you know, it's not just a one-way street with us coaches. We want you to say, this is what I need, okay? That's really important to develop. Okay, so I know Steve's talked to you about this before, but serves are so important. And we're trying to think of ways to make it more enjoyable for you guys, because we're not going to pretend that they're interesting, sitting there with a bucket of balls just serving all the time. But for something that we do 50% of the time, we practice it probably about 5% of the time. Okay, so, and all it is experimentation. There's no right way to serve. As long as it's legal, you know, it's something that you need to find out yourself to improve, because that's the big difference. If you can get a Queensland squad full of people who can serve well, we can absolutely beat Victoria, New South Wales and stuff, okay? Secondary to that, with your serves, especially what we're going to be doing today, you need to be thinking about what's coming back, okay? So a good serve's one thing, but you need to know what's coming back in the next ball, okay? So if I do this serve, what do I want to happen? So you can never predict 100%, but you know, if you do a side spin serve, 80% of the time it's going to come back into your backhand. Does that make sense? Because we're creatures of habit, okay? We do what's safe, all right? Just to break it up, do you want to talk about like muscles and the goal and stuff like that?
Yeah, okay, so we're quite blessed up in Queensland. Most of the year it is warm enough to come without jacket and track pants. So, especially down in nationals, it's going to be very important to bring, like Andrew's wearing today, Queensland jacket and some track pants. And they should be worn all the time when you're not playing. It just keeps your muscles from getting too cold and reducing the risk of injury, because when we get cold, that's when bad stuff happens basically. So warming up, you can take the tracksuit top off. When you feel warm, take it all off and we're ready to go. In between games, so once you're finished playing and you're sitting on the bench and you're cheering for your team, tracksuit bottoms and tops on, okay? And to and from the centre, that kind of thing. So just trying to keep your body nice and warm, okay? And also, secondary to that, warming up properly, okay? So we get there an hour before our team game, making sure you have plenty of time. We do the warm up around the table. Like, I don't enjoy it myself, but I know it's good for my body. Loosening my joints, getting all the fluids running around, that kind of thing. So that is really important. And warming up properly on the table. Like Matt says, throwing in some random exercises as well to get the brain going. So there's nothing wrong with doing your backhand form beforehand, but you know that's not what's going to happen in a game. All right, so these and long pants, which I forgot this weekend, but we all forget some things. They are mine. So yeah, making sure we have these with us.
So yeah, just on top of that, like, I will be looking after the juniors mainly this year, so I'll be watching. So for jumpers, for track pants and stuff like that, because it's not worth it. The cold is a great equaliser, okay? You guys are young, you guys are spring chickens, but when it's cold, you know, your muscles will break down if you don't look after them properly, okay? So, and you know, you all know what it's like. Some of you have played in Hobart in July and stuff like that. You know what it's like to go on cold, okay? It's a terrible feeling, especially when it's that cold. Caloundra won't be hopefully too bad, but it's been pretty chilly here this weekend, so it's really good practice. Like yesterday at our dinner break, some people didn't have jumpers on, okay? So get in the habit now and it'll be easier.
We're in the middle of the winter, and that venue is a very, very big venue, so it will be quite cold inside, for sure.
Okay, so a few things we're going to talk about now is stuff you can use immediately and use at nationals to help out a bit, help you out. So one of them's called the quiet eye. So basically thinking of your eyes as a torch, okay? They're focusing on different things during the match. As soon as you start looking around, looking at the crowd and stuff like that, that's more for your brain to process, okay? So if you can help it, maybe mainly 3 points, okay? So looking at your coach, looking at your team, looking at the table, okay? That's the main 3 things you need to focus on. I would even suggest, they even say nowadays, to keep your eyes off the score, okay? It's unhelpful, all right? Especially you watch some kid, next time you're sitting on the bench, especially all you guys at nationals, just watch some games. When it gets close, you watch the amount of times a person's eyes will go to the score when it's about 9-9 or something like that. Their eyes will just be darting back and forth. So you need to get out of that habit, because you don't need to put extra pressure on yourself in an already pressure-filled situation. Does that make sense?
That's also why it's so important for the umpire to call the score. So if your umpire is not calling the score, ask them to say the score. So you don't have to give it. You don't have to give the score.
Yeah. And don't be shy too. If you're not keen on going up and telling someone yourself, that's what the coaches are for. Just say they're not calling the score. We'll happily go out there and yell at the kid. That's fine. That's fine. That's our job. That's our job. So, just want to talk a bit about what our brains do when they're under pressure. Okay? So when it's close in the 7th or the 5th or whatever, or the scores are very close in the team match, your brain will naturally, it's fight or flight, and most of the time the brain will choose flight and it'll try and rush through everything. You'll notice sometimes you'll play those matches where you can't even remember what happened, just because everything's happening so fast and the game's over, and then you ask someone what happened and they honestly can't say, I don't know, because the game's over. So you need to make a conscious effort to slow down. So it's going to be probably very cold. You're probably not going to need your towels that much, but when it's at 6 points, just take it. Even if it's only for a second, just to slow down the pace of the game and stuff like that. Take your time between serves. When you're receiving, there's absolutely no rush. You know, even if the other guy's standing there, that doesn't matter. You still have your allocated time that you're given by the rules between points. As long as you're not dragging it on. It's 10, 20 seconds you can take between points.
It gives you that time to calm yourself down as well. If you are rushing, it breaks the game up and it gives you that time to think, what am I going to do next? So,
Yeah. So, that's dogs. So, a great way of normalise, so what a good one that they've come up with lately is like routines, okay? And they're things you can do every time between points. And what that does, and you should do it in your training matches, in your training, what it does is normalise the process for your brain, okay? So what we want to get to is, you know how some people, you see them serve, they bounce it on the table or something like that, spin the ball, that's a routine, okay? You guys who've watched tennis, everyone knows the stereotypical Rafa Nadal when he receives, he's like pinching his butt and his hair and going like this every time he receives. That's a routine. So basically what they are doing is normalising the process, and because you're doing the same thing every point, even when it's 9-all in the fifth, even when the team scores 4-all and you need to win, your brain's saying when you do a routine, it's like, I've done this before. You know, this is no different to what I'm used to, and it's a lot calmer, okay? It puts a lot less stress on the brain because it feels like nothing's changed. I'm still at training, I'm still relaxed and stuff like that, okay? And it's particularly important in those close points because especially if you're receiving, I know a lot of people have a service routine just by default, everyone has, but you need to have a receiving one too. Even if it's like side of the table, you'll get DQ'd if you're touching the top of the table, but you know, or even bouncing on your toes, just something to ground yourself, something to make it normal, okay? Because a lot of people don't do it, and that's a big difference between the best and the good people, okay? Just having that routine, okay? Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is a good attitude sort of thing you need to be looking to have. So what they say now, so the super elite players, they have a certain mindset in how they deal with things, okay? Compared to those who are almost elite players. They did a study and, you know, your Federers, your Nadals and stuff like that, and then people who aren't quite there, top 100 in the world and stuff like that. And the big differentiator they found is how you deal with failure, okay? How you deal with losing, how you deal with struggling during a match, okay? So the big thing to focus on to get to that sort of mentality of a super elite, they call them, is you need to be able to learn from failure, okay? It can't just be something, you can't just say, I've lost, go home and just chuck your bat and say, I'm done. Just go do something, play video games or something. All it is taking a moment to reflect on it and using it to motivate you intrinsically. So we're in a process-driven sport, okay? Of course, we have results every time we play a match, but you need to think bigger picture, okay? You're preparing for nationals now. Every time you come to play fixtures, every time you train, you need to be thinking, how is this helping me for nationals? What did I get from that game that I need to work on before nationals? You only have a short amount of time, but it's good to start practicing now, okay? And even at nationals, you need to have a positive mindset towards failure, because if you lose, you can't afford for it to affect other matches, okay? Even if you have a bad loss that you didn't enjoy, you can't allow that to affect your future matches. You're part of a team, your team's relying on you to stay positive, and they will do their best to keep you positive, okay? So, last thing, I didn't have this written down, but it's very important. I know on the table, yes, table tennis is a relatively individual sport, but everything outside of that table is a team sport, okay? Especially when we're going as a Queensland team. So if you have a choice between going and, you know, running around outside and cheering someone who's in a tight match, you should be choosing to cheer someone, because often it's a reciprocating thing. They'll come and cheer you. If we have the best culture in the hall, we will win matches because of it. Because we're cheering, we're clapping our friends, we're doing much better, okay? It's super important. I'd rather have that really good culture than a bunch of gold medals, okay? We want to have you guys cheering each other, supporting each other, and being there if someone loses, okay? You know, don't just leave them or stuff like that. You know, be there. Be supportive of your team, because even you guys together, like if you see one of the people here struggling, go and cheer them, especially in the singles matches and stuff like that. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions?
Just talk about the nets and edges yesterday as well. Bring that up as well.
Yeah.
Yes, so not necessarily nets and edges, but anything like sort of, you know, not going in your favour kind of thing. So you on a run of 3 points losing, that kind of thing, and a lot of us, especially me, I'm sure you've seen me play, body language goes, the head drops, shoulders drop, and
people from the outside can see you're getting frustrated, you're not enjoying what you're doing. You're trying to, have you ever, any of you heard fake it till you make it? So you have to, when you're in that position, you go, oh, okay, that's 3 points I've lost, I'm getting angrier and angrier. I don't want to lose the next 5 points because I'm dwelling on the last 3. Okay, so pick your shoulder, you've got to try and pick your shoulders up, try and get up on your toes and change that body language, because you'll be surprised at how much that changes your playing. You'll loosen back up again, you'll get more positive, more motivated to get in with your first forehand. Okay, has anyone had a time where that's happened to you? You can all think of a time. And did anyone change their body language? Can you think of a time where you were able to change it? No? Okay, well that's something. When we're playing even practice games in here, noticing that frustration, noticing that run of points, stopping it, taking a towel, even taking a timeout can help. Yeah? Normalizing that process, getting back into it, and then being more positive on the table. Not reacting negatively with your body language when, say, someone gets a couple of nets in a row or gets an edge. Fake it. Doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me at all. I'm going to get the next point. Okay? So think about that when you're playing in your practice games, and try and notice when that's happening. Even come and tell one of us, oh, I lost 2 points because they got a net and I didn't like it, but then I stopped and changed my body language. Come and tell us. It'll be good.
As far as players watching other players is concerned, are they only allowed to do that? Because we've been told that they've got to leave as soon as they finish playing.
Yeah, they haven't done the brief for the, all that kind of stuff yet, but, obviously if we're allowed to be there for our teammates, we should
We've
be.
been saying as umpires that players have to leave as soon as they finish playing, and they're only allowed to arrive not long before they're going to be ready to play when they arrive.
Okay.
Even if
When
players,
the team is finished, you have to go back.
even if players like playing in groups, teams of 3 or 4, mostly we're talking about, your team is on your bench until you played that last point. Sitting there, clapping for them, like you would want someone else to support you. Treat your teammate as you wish to be treated yourself. If you're going to be off wandering around, not paying attention, that kind of thing, then your teammate might do that, and they might not be there for the good and the bad. Yeah? So you need to be sat on that bench with them until the end. All right?
Yeah. And even if it's not being able to, be there for someone, but, congratulate someone if they win. You see the results. I know you guys, you're looking at the phone and stuff like that and seeing, what the results are happening. If someone has a good win, tell them. Congratulate them.
Yeah.
Anything on showing and cheering during a match, showing the just kidding.
When you're...
I believe there are no rules on the volume and, that kind of thing. However, we like that, it's the culture of the Queensland team we're trying to build. We're not doing it at the other person. We're always to ourselves and making it as positive of an action as we can, because that drives us on to the next point. It gets us on top of the other player, and you see all different players, they've got different ways of doing it. Some are louder than the other, some are deeper and more aggressive than the other. It works different for everyone, and what works for you, that's, if it's not sportsmanship, like your coach will tell you. Yeah, talk to us and say, is that all right? Am I doing okay? Is this too much? And we're happy to say, just bring it back in a little bit. We want you to be intimidating, but in a sportsmanship way. Okay?
And it's probably important to notice if you're on the receiving end of someone being quite loud, it's beyond your control. So, you need to be able to be strong enough mentally to block it out and be able to. That's why routines are important. Yeah. Going back round to your body language, not letting them think that it's affecting you. Yeah. Faking it until you make it. All right. Because some people, if they know that being loud and stuff like that disturbs you, they'll just do it. They'll do it more. So, you need to be able to be unfazed by it. And it's something we can't control. It's something that you can't make better. If you tell someone, oh, you should stop chewing, most people just do it more. So,
Same thing then you get the opposition bench,
Or we have our own person.
Can you make something out of
Queensland
that?
Kappa.
You just hear my background.
yeah, you just got to try to get there.
Lastly, probably.
Psych yourself up because of it.
Yeah. Lastly, hopefully nationals go ahead. Nothing's guaranteed these days. But, if we all get to go, the last thing is, of course, enjoy nationals. Yes, we're looking for, good results and wins, but we're also looking for people to enjoy themselves, to support each other and mainly have a good time. And you guys are old enough to know what a good time means in the context of, professional behaviour, okay? So, the basics that we always say, try and avoid just McDonald's, basically. That's a big one. Stay warm, cheer each other if we're allowed to, because this is the stuff you'll remember, when you're my age, when you're Kelsey's age. This is the moments you remember, okay?
There's still things that we need to think about. Getting to your match on time, having your bat, your towel, your water bottle full, like a banana on the side, that kind of thing. Thinking about what's going to help you through your match, what you need to be professional, yeah?
And then remembering to take it home again.
Yes. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm good.
No?
And you need to do Velcro spots on it so you can make sure everything's full.
Yeah.
Guys, you've got to remember to always have your water bottle with you. So a lot of time, even at the council, I notice start going and then you'd ask somebody to go and get their water bottle for you because you left it down here. Alright, so you've got to be more.
We've all done it.
Be more independent, rely on not just rely on the coast to bring your water bottle down.
Yeah.
All done you're there.
Or mum or dad.
Well, I don't think that's even going to be possible because it sounds like anyone else is going to be just
What it does is it's distracting you because you're thinking about, water bottle, you're not thinking about the game. You know what I mean? A water bottle's out there somewhere. Bring it with you, it's there, it's there. Alright.
Does that all make sense to you all? Yeah.
Because that can be a
Nothing
distraction.
surprises.
Especially when you get like that real dry mouth, when you're nervous. You think, gee, I wish I had a water bottle.
Alright, what's the time? Okay, perfect timing, 12 o'clock.
Have some food. And
Assuming you all bought food with you today.
Yeah, obviously.